I think as a church, we've really changed our perspective of how we view our online audience. We're now realizing it's really our online congregation. Whether you don't live here or you're home or for safety or security or health reasons, whatever, you may not be here. We really want to treat this as our online congregation. Now, there was an obvious tension about that. It's one thing to do it when you're in an empty room and you're pre-recording, but to be able to have those same cameras in those same positions when it might be a visual obstruction to a few people, it might be an inconvenience. But now our audience, whether those that are here or whatever, have realized, man, I'm willing to make a little bit of that sacrifice of having a camera that might be in my way, knowing that my friend or someone that I may not even know is able to experience what I'm experiencing. Man, our church has embraced that. We want to take this experience in the room and make it available to as many people as possible. When I first started at the church 4 years ago, I actually started as a volunteer cam op, and I remember walking in, it was a 4-camera system. We've got the camera way in the back on the right, way in the back on the left, way in the back on the center, and then, a wide shot from the back. But everything was really, as far as placement of cameras was, I don't want to see them. I don't want them to be an obstruction, to be in the way far back, zoom in and get as close as you can. We'll take that approach. And then in 2019, we were actually building a balcony here in the room, not realizing that what we were actually doing was preparing the room for what 2020 was going to bring us. Well, then COVID happens. So we were able to, over 9 months, really experiment with cameras on stage, cameras behind places, and up this, and what's this angle, and light flares, and a lot of kind of cool stuff. And then when it came to, well, we're going to start having live services again, my fear is like, oh no, we're going to go back, let's hide them in the back. But it was, no, this is the experience everyone's gotten used to and really felt that they're engaging. No matter that they were at home, you feel like you're right there in the room. So it's those same cameras, and now we've got, crowd added back in. But it's just great to see that God used that to take us from the, stay back and out of the way to, man, how can we make our online audience feel like they're right there in the room? So as far as audio on a Sunday, we actually have 3 Yamaha PM10s. We have one that runs at front of house, we have one that runs at monitors, and we actually have a third console that's dedicated just to our online stream. If you've ever seen our services online, you'll see that we definitely feature an LED wall. Many different configurations, many different styles and settings and layouts and all that, but it's really a big visual part of our service. That's really been an intentional choice for us of really, whether it's the quotes or the scriptures or whatever we're using, we try to use imagery as much as possible, and our LED wall is definitely a huge part of that. On a Sunday, we typically have about 10 camera positions, and I'm gonna see if I can run you through. Camera 1's typically at front of house. That's an Ursa broadcast. That's on a 17 by lens, and that's usually our nice and tight, whether it's the worship leader or the person who's speaking. Camera 2 is typically a wide shot. That's usually from front of house as well, and it's a little bit of wider perspective, kind of showing the crowd and energy of what's going on. 3 is an Ursa broadcast. That's on a jib. That's swinging around. It's usually on about a 20-foot range right now. Camera 4 for us is actually on a Rhino dolly. It's a little micro studio camera from Blackmagic that's just kind of ping-ponging back and forth. And that's during the message, so it's not just this wide static every time we reference back to a slide, but it's kind of moving back and forth, showing a little bit of energy to the room. 5 is usually down front, house left. That's a low 45, kind of looking up again at the speaker when he's speaking. But as far as worship, that's getting some nice of the BGVs or a side shot there. That's an Ursa G2. Camera 6 is an Ursa broadcast, house right, 45 of the speaker as well. It's got a nice 17 by, so it can get nice and close. Camera 8 is usually our drum cam, so that's usually handheld or on sticks, kind of getting that live shot of the drums. Camera 9 is down front, house right, just off the front edge of the stage, and that's getting some BGVs, picking up some electric shots as well. Camera 10 is actually far back, house right, and that's a big wide, kind of showing stage wide with crowd and all of that. When I started, we were doing more of an E&G style, again, far back, a lot of that servo, slow push, zoom out, all of that. We really moved to the cinema style. For me, honestly, I love the energy that it conveys. So for us, it was a slow progression, but it was, let's try to go for a little bit shallower depth of field with some of the cinema cameras. Let's add in some Dana dollies and some sliders back and forth. Let's get a gimbal in here every once in a while. Let's go for that handheld on the drums. When I first started, we were using a software encoder for all of our streams. So once we started looking beyond that, going like, what is the options once you get past a software encoder? We started going, to be honest, what are the big guys using? Ultimately for us, we wanted a solution that was rock solid, that was dedicated, that wasn't going to constantly need software updates and you're constantly monitoring and all that. And we looked at Resi, we found a solution that could not only push out to the social channels that we wanted, but gave us the option of having a dedicated encode for a service like Church Online. Also, what was great with us was realizing that there's a backup. We've actually had issues here before where we've actually lost power to the entire building. and as a switch over to a generator and realized we didn't even lose our Resi stream in a situation like that. As a church, you can do everything in the room right. But then there's that one link in the chain. If you don't have your encoder and your streaming locked in and locked down, your audience is going to suffer, and that's not something that we wanted. So in researching that, we found out about Resi. It's been rock solid, and I haven't had a problem since.